Hey, this is Nick from Income Digs. Welcome to this tutorial. We're talking all about QuickBooks Online and how we can optimize the workflow for property management. So a lot of you are property managers or you're a bookkeeper for a property manager and you're trying to figure out exactly how to manage everything within QuickBooks Online. We're going to talk through a workflow today where we not only invoice our tenants, those that are actually renting the apartments, but we also can maintain balances for the owners, okay? And I'm going to show you how we can do that right within QuickBooks Online. We'll probably have some follow-ups, some nuances, some other ways of doing this as follow-ups, but right now we're going to deal with that exact workflow. As we get into this today, I want to remind you to check out our free chart of accounts download. So if you want a chart of accounts that you can import into your QuickBooks Online that is specific to real estate investing, specific to property management, download it for free at incomedigs.com. We have the link in the description there. Also check out our free QBO mini camp. So we dive in depth with over 2 hours of training where we go through the various fundamental processes that I use with my students all the time. Check that out as well. But let's get into today's topic, which is specifically property management workflow within QuickBooks Online. So what we're going to talk about today is a situation where we invoice tenants as well as pay expenses for owners and maintain balances for owners. So what makes this a little bit unique and confusing for a lot of us is the fact that we kind of have two customers, right? We have the tenant, who's the actual person renting the apartment, and we have the owner for whom we are managing the property. Okay, so we have to kind of think about both of those. And so what I've done is I've taken a lot of information from you, my students, my audience, as far as what situation works for you and what you do, and I'm trying to get a system and a process that works within QuickBooks, and I think I've got a pretty good one. And again, we'll have some follow-ups on this for some various different ways of doing it. What we're going to do is invoice tenants. We're going to pay expenses on behalf of the owners, make sure that we mark those as billable. We're going to maintain owner balances and then eventually pay out our owners. So when we do this, we want to think about our customer hierarchy. Okay, so this is my proposed customer hierarchy within QuickBooks Online. We need to use definitely our tenants because we're going to be invoicing them. Okay, so anybody you're invoicing needs to be listed as a customer. I think it makes sense for them to be the very bottom, the child level of the hierarchy, probably with a property on top. That is helpful for maintaining some structure and some organization. And then finally, the owner would be the top. So that would be the parent level. I'll show you that within QuickBooks. Thinking about our chart of accounts and our products and services, we want to hold our tenants' rent in owner funds payable, something like that, some kind of name like that. Not income. So this is an other current liability. So this says that like, hey, we received funds, but it's not ours. We owe it to our owners and we're going to pay that out eventually. We're going to track expenses as billable. So as we pay utilities, as we pay for repairs, we're going to mark them as billable so that we can invoice our owners as well. Okay. And then we're also going to be tracking our property management income. So here is how the workflow will go. We're going to create monthly recurring tenant invoices. We're going to pay out our expenses as they're incurred, make sure we mark them as billable. Our monthly recurring owner invoice as well. We're going to charge our owners for the property management as well as billable charges, any charges we've incurred. And then we're going to create a monthly recurring owner credit where we say we owe you the funds that we've received from our tenant, and we're going to balance that out with a payout. It's going to be nice and easy, all right? So let's see that in QuickBooks Online, all right? First thing I want to look at is our chart of accounts, okay? Now, I've done a lot of this work already, so I'm just going to show you what I've done in setting this up and testing it. And the first thing is our liability account. So if we go down to other current liabilities, much like you would set up for security deposits, and I passed it, didn't I? Yeah, much like you would set up for security deposits, you're going to have something like this, owner's funds payable. Now, I marked it liability, just so we're sure about that. So I have that. Excellent. Okay, that's ready to go. And I'm gonna show you. We got some invoices open already that we'll look at. And the other thing we want to think about is our income. So do you have property management income set up? Because we are property managers, we need to get paid for that service. So that should be an income line. Okay, and then billable expenses income. That should be something that's there by default within QuickBooks Online. If it's not there yet, it's probably because you haven't yet turned on billable expenses. So let's do that. Let me show you exactly how to do that. Go to Account and Settings, and then going into Expenses. Right here, mark expenses as billable, as well as track expenses by customer. Now, here's where you would potentially have a markup. For property managers, rarely do I see markups being charged. You could potentially do that though. Like if it's, added effort for you to pay these expenses, you might have an agreement with your owners where you are marking those expenses up. That's up to you and your agreement. In this case, I'm going to keep that off. Okay. But once we've turned that whole thing on to make expenses and items billable, that billable expense income will show up within our chart of accounts. Let's look at our customer hierarchy. So I'm going to go over here to customers, and you see here, right where I started Anvil Properties, I have kind of an example of how it would be set up. So here's my owner, here's my property, and then here's my tenants. These are actual human beings who would need to pay me rent, okay? Right below it, I have another owner. So I have Anvil Properties up here. I have EAB Properties down here. Below EAB Properties, I have two properties. I have 122 Buffalo. I have 123 Main Street. Okay, I have two tenants, Juliet and Olivia, one at apartment A, one at apartment B. You can see that we actually have balances. We have some invoices open here as well. Okay, so that's my customer hierarchy. We also want to think about products and services. And the main important aspect of our products and services is when we set up, for example, our 122 Buffalo Street apartment A and B rent. If we look at how these are set up, a few things here. First of all, I should probably indicate a rate on these. Go $950 for this one. Notice the income account. It's not rental income. It's owner's funds payable. It's that account we had set up in our chart of accounts. Okay, we are receiving these funds, but it's not our money yet. It's a liability that we actually owe to our owners. Okay, so we have that set up. I'm just going to look here. I'm just adding rates to these. Okay. So let's look at those invoices that we have here. So we're going to invoice out our customer and receive payment. Okay. Now we could use QuickBooks Online to receive payment. I suggest you do that if you don't have another way to do it, or we can receive paper checks or cash, whatever. But either way, we're going to at least use QuickBooks Online to indicate whether or not we have received payment or not. Okay. So I'm going to look into these invoices. Okay. So here's apartment A, apartment B. Here are my invoices. They're overdue. Now I've created all of these as of 2/1/2018, and I'm just doing this so I can draw up a balance sheet for you to demonstrate how it works. But each of these invoices is really straightforward. We're just indicating here the date of the service, 122 Buffalo Street apartment B rent. You can maybe put in the description monthly rent. Okay. Now I am indicating a class here as well. If you have QuickBooks Online Plus, I kind of think you should do that, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to draw up a P&L shortly. That's going to look really crazy when we use customer. It's going to look really nice when we use class. So if you can use both, that's usually good. I'd probably put in the customer email. I'd probably allow them to pay me online, and I'd save and send it to them. Okay. Now that's probably what I would typically do. But let's just say I received a paper check payment. Okay, so I'm going to receive payment here. But before I do that, let's see what this all looks like in our balance sheet. Okay, so we're going to just envision that the only thing this business has done so far is really just issued those two invoices. So if I run that balance sheet for this business, the only thing that's on there right now are those two invoices. And you see that it shows up as accounts receivable for me, my property management company, and it shows as owner's funds payable as a liability. Okay, great. So now what I could do, I could display columns by customers. This is where it starts getting a little crazy. And I can see that for EAB properties, I have 122 Buffalo Street, then I have apartment A, apartment B, total for 122 Buffalo Street, total for EAB properties. So I have a total due to EAB properties of $1,800. That's great. What I'd probably do instead of doing it displayed like this, I'd probably just filter it down. I'll get into that later when we talk about reporting. All right, so my invoices are right there. They're ready to go. Let's receive payments for those invoices. So I can go to... I don't know why they're not showing as overdue. I'm going to receive payment for Juliet and for Olivia. So let's receive this payment. And when I do, money's going to go into my checking account. I can indicate the date that it's paid. Looks good. I'm going to save and close that. So what does that do? That will decrease our accounts receivable, and it will increase our cash in our bank account. Really simple. Okay, so I'll show you that in the balance sheet. So far, all I've done is invoice tenants and receive payments for those invoices. I don't know why some of these saved reports are not really working these days. All right, so you see here that pretty much what happened was it moved from accounts receivable to accounts, or to my checking account, I still owe the owner that $1,800. I have not yet charged the owner for property management services. Okay, we will do that. Let me save this. All right. Excellent. So now what do we do throughout the rest of the month? We incur expenses on behalf of the owner. Okay, so that can happen either through bank transactions. So we could just, as they come through our bank, we're submitting the payment. We have our credit card set up for utilities or something like that. Okay, we could very easily take an expense like this, and I could indicate, okay, it's for repairs and maintenance. We definitely would want to indicate who the property is. So let's say it's for 122 Buffalo. Maybe we don't know what unit it is. That's actually really common. That's why this hierarchy is important, and we want to have the property there. We can indicate 122 Buffalo. I'd probably put the class in there as well. And here's the important part, billable, right there. Now, because this transaction is 2023, it's not going to do us any good on my reporting. So I'm going to create a manual expense. Okay, so this would just be normal day-to-day of your property management company. You're going through and you're paying expenses on behalf of your owner. Of course, you're going to make sure that you have a really good management in place on how to understand what expenses are for what property, what owners. So I'm going to indicate my payment date. And here I'm going to say repairs and maintenance, toilet repair. Okay, $250, billable, 122 Buffalo. Okay, and class 122 Buffalo. Let's save and close that. Okay, so you're going to incur those expenses. Now, what will happen is toward the end of the month, what you want to do is you want to invoice your owner for property management fees and any billable expenses. Okay, so when we go to our customers, what we can do there is we say, you know what, for 122 Buffalo Street, you owe me some property management fees, right? So let's do a new invoice for EAB property. So I can do a new invoice, and actually I'll probably do it by the property. It depends. So you could do one invoice right here and include everything for these properties, or you could do separate ones for each property. Let's do it by property here. So here I'm going to do an invoice to 122 Buffalo Street. Let's just say that this is due at the end of February. Okay, so at the end of February, I'm going to charge for property management. Okay, and my property management is, all right, $950 for apartment A. I'm going to charge 6% of that, as well as $6% of $850. Okay, so look at that invoice, nice and neat, right? I'm going to save this for a second. And I'm going to turn off send later just for now. Okay. Notice my billable charges are up here. I'm going to deal with that separately, but I'm going to click make recurring real fast. All right. And so what I want you to do, and you're going to do this with your tenants as well, is every month we'll do a recurring owner invoice 122 Buffalo. Okay. I want to create it maybe 10 days in advance, and it's going to be on monthly on the last day of every month. Okay, and we'll start it, because I'm recording this one in February, I'm going to start it in March. Okay, service date, unfortunately, you got to get rid of this. This won't dynamically update, so you have to get rid of that. And here's what's crucial. We're going to click include unbilled charges. Okay, I'm just going to save that template. So that's there, it's ready for me. Now let's go back to that invoice that I have for 122 Buffalo Street, that $108. If I click into this specific invoice, I would have wanted to add to this the billable charge. Now on my recurring template, that'll automatically happen. This $250 will automatically get added, but when I click it here, it's gonna be added. So this owner owes me $358 on this invoice, okay? But as I'm guessing, you're realizing we owe the owner $1,800, right? How do we know that? Well, we can go to our reports, okay? And we probably would want to set up a reporting structure like this, where we take our balance sheet for the year, okay? And I probably want to customize this, and I want to filter it by all my specific customers. So in this case, I'm going to do it by 122 for EAB properties, okay? and I run that whole thing. And that tells me that I owe this customer $1,800. Save customization. I'm just going to do this for balance sheet EAB props. Okay. So that tells me that I owe this owner $1,800. So I need to write a credit memo to that owner. Okay. Now that is also going to be something we set up as recurring. But right now, I'm just going to go into my customer and I'm going to do this one manually. Okay. So for 122 Buffalo Street, I'm going to create let me go right into it. I'm going to do right here a credit memo. So I owe this customer, this owner of mine, I owe apartment A rent, and apartment B rent. Right? Okay. And if I say, I can't just save it. I'm going to go back into this. I'm going to make this recurring as well. Every single month, I'm going to own this, right? So why don't I make this recurring? Okay. So this is my 122 Buffalo credit memo. I'll have it create 10 days in advance. Okay. Monthly. Let's have it go on let's go last day every month. And we're going to do this as of March as well. So now this is also recurring. Okay. So now you can see that I have an open balance of negative 1,442. Now everything that I've done so far will automatically happen monthly. Okay. Now all I have to do is incur billable charges and mark them as billable. I guess the last thing that I haven't done yet is make these invoices to Olivia and Juliet. So let's just do that. Let's make these recurring as well. So if we can set up almost all of these to be recurring, so 122 Buffalo, Juliet, this is going to be on the first day of every month. Okay, we'll start this on March 1st. Okay, save template. And we're going to do the same thing for Olivia. Did I do that? Let me just look. Go to my recurring transactions. I have Juliet in there. I don't have Olivia yet. All right, so everything's recurring. So we have a recurring invoice to all of our tenants. We have a recurring invoice to our owner, okay, that we can edit and is going to include unbilled charges. And we have a recurring credit memo. Okay, so that's going to do almost all the work for us. The last thing we have to do is just pay out our owner. All right, so this looks good. We'll start it March 1st. Save. Okay, so now everything's set up as recurring, right? If I go to my 122 Buffalo, I see that I have 1,442. So all I need to do every month, okay, now this could be recurring as well, but probably not. What you'd want to do is you'd look at this open balance, and we're just going to do a new expense where it's our payout. Okay, we're going to pay out that EAB Properties, 122 Buffalo, from this account. We're going to pay them out, and I just forgot the amount. So sorry about that. 1442. Okay, so sorry, one more time. We're going to pay them out 1442. Last of the month here. And this is going to be accounts receivable. 1442. Put in the class. I could put in my customer as well. Save and close this. Okay, now all I need to do here, this is an unapplied credit memo, or we have a few things that are unapplied. I'm going to take this invoice, and I got this payment here. I'm going to go view payment. And here, all I got to do is indicate this expense as well. What I'm doing here is my 358 plus my 1442 gives me a balance of 0 for this owner. So I'm writing the check for 1442. And what I've done is I've recognized my income. I'm going to show you this on the report shortly. Recognize the income. All along the way, I recognize that I owe the owner money, and I'm maintaining the owner balance over here. So because we have this hierarchy maintained, right, at every level within our customers, we're able to see what their balances are. So notice now they're all zeros. So as I invoice my tenants, those populate. And as I owe my owners money, those go down as well. So I have that balance. So with the recurring invoices to our tenants, the recurring invoice to our owner, and then the payouts, we're able to do all of this really, really quickly. So let's go to my reports, see exactly for EAB props how things are going. Okay, so I have some cash in checking. My accounts receivable zeroed out. I don't owe the owner anything anymore, and I have a net income of $108. What's that net income? There's my billable expense charge. Here's my property management income. Here's the repairs and maintenance that I had to pay for, and I have a net income of $108. Okay, so I get my P&L looking great for my company, and my owner is getting paid out nice and neat as well. And you can, for your owner, make some really nice statements as well. So we can take EAB properties as a whole, and for that, create a statement. Okay, so I can print or preview this just to see what it's going to look like. And here you see there's my rent going up, there's my invoice, and there's my credit memo. Total received is $358. Okay, so we're kind of maintaining that over time. All right, so we can play with those as well. We can also do we do a balance forward. Let me see what these different ones look like. Yeah, so here we can see, here's the invoice, here's the payment, here's the credit memo, here's the expenses. So those all kind of come through. All right, so this is one way, again, not like that it's not a little bit complicated, but this is one way that we can maintain our accounts receivable for our tenants as well as maintaining balances for our owners, all within QuickBooks Online. So if we maintain this customer hierarchy, owner, property, tenants, we set up our chart of accounts so that we're not recognizing income on the rent received, but we're holding that to pay back to our owners. We're incurring billable expenses, and then we're using kind of a mix of recurring templates so that we have invoicing going out to our owners with credit memos, and we have a net that we give to them through a monthly check or expense. Okay, so check that out. Let me know what your thoughts are on it. Give it a try and put more questions and comments in here. What we're going to do on some of the future videos, we're going to talk about managing this all kind of yourself. So if you're your own property manager, how you might do something similar to this within QuickBooks Online. All right, thanks so much for watching this. Check out, as I mentioned, all the free resources available at incomedigs.com, the chart of accounts, QBO Minicamp. Check out our end-to-end course, Real Estate Accounting Bootcamp. We have so much content available for you there. And let me know what you want to see next, okay? Your questions, your comments feed my next videos. Until next time, enjoy this tutorial on QuickBooks Online, and I'll see you on the next video.